When expecting a new addition to the family, parents prepare in all sorts of ways. They read every baby book they can get their hands on, make sure every corner of the house is baby-proofed, and stock up on more diapers than they could ever imagine needing. They paint the nursery, set up the crib, and plan for those long sleepless nights ahead. But when one father-to-be in England found out he was having a daughter, he had an idea that was far from typical. He wasn't content with the usual baby preparations. He had something unique and grand in mind, something that would take years to complete. And when the time came to reveal it, the result was nothing short of magical. The father, who preferred to remain unnamed, was struck by a special idea even before his daughter was born. Instead of only buying baby clothes and toys, he decided to create something unforgettable for her, a surprise so epic that it would take 6 years to unveil. When he shared his plan with his wife, she was supportive, although even she wasn't quite sure how it would turn out. But he was determined, and he spent the months leading up to his daughter's birth quietly setting the stage. From the outside, everything looked normal, but the father was already thinking about his daughter's future and imagining her joy and wonder when she would finally discover his secret. Over the years, he added little touches here and there, tucking away the final piece of his project until she would be old enough to appreciate it. The years passed, and his little girl grew up, bright and full of curiosity. By the time she turned 6, the father knew the moment had arrived. He told her that he needed her help with a task cleaning out an old trunk full of junk that had been gathering dust in a storage closet. The girl agreed, not realizing that her father was watching with a camera in hand, ready to capture what was about to unfold. Her mother and grandmother stood nearby, trying to hide their smiles as they watched the little girl rummage through the trunk. The trunk was filled with all kinds of odds and ends, broken toys, old clothes, random knickknacks. The girl patiently sorted through the items, tossing aside anything that didn't seem interesting. And then, buried at the bottom of the trunk, she found something curious, a wrinkled, aged piece of paper that looked like it had been pulled straight from an adventure story. "What's this?" she asked, her eyes wide with excitement. Her father leaned in, pretending to be as surprised as she was. "Looks like an old map," he said, his tone full of mystery. "Maybe it's a treasure map." The little girl's face lit up, and she clutched the map tightly. She could hardly believe what she was holding. Was it possible that there was hidden treasure somewhere in her own house? She eagerly unrolled the paper and studied it, her eyes tracing the faded lines and symbols. The map seemed old and well-worn, and it was clear that a lot of thought had gone into making it look authentic. With a little help from her dad, she soon realized that the map was actually a layout of their home. Her excitement doubled as she realized that this wasn't just any old map, it was a guide to something hidden within her very own walls. She jumped up, ready to start the hunt, and raced out into the hallway, glancing back at her father to see if he was coming along. "Where do you think it could be?" she asked, her voice full of anticipation. Her father smiled. "Well, according to the map, the treasure is hidden somewhere in your room." They both headed to her bedroom, her family trailing close behind, eager to watch the adventure unfold. Once inside, she carefully examined the map, looking for any hints that might help her find the exact location of the treasure. She felt like a real explorer, and her excitement was contagious. Her family watched as she searched her room, peeking into every corner and behind every piece of furniture. Finally, she noticed a faint X marked on one of the walls, a clue. It was right there, hidden in plain sight, but there was no doorway or visible entry. Had she come all this way only to reach a dead end? She looked at her father, her eyes full of questions. "Why don't we try knocking on the wall?" her father suggested, leaning in to gently tap the spot marked on the map. To her surprise, the knock echoed differently from the rest of the wall, a hollow sound, as if something was hidden just beyond. Her father grabbed an electric saw, and as he cut a square into the wall, the girl's excitement grew with every passing second. When the square was finally cut, he gently pushed the piece of drywall inward, revealing a small, hidden space just big enough for her to crawl through. Her heart pounded as she pulled back the panel and peered inside, her imagination running wild. What treasures could possibly be hidden inside? She crawled into the secret room, her eyes adjusting to the dim light. Inside, she spotted a small, dusty chest sitting in the center of the room, like a scene from a fairy tale. She felt like she was in her very own adventure story, standing before a chest that could be filled with anything: jewels, gold coins, ancient scrolls. She hesitated for a moment, almost too excited to open it, before lifting the lid with both hands. Inside the chest was a collection of fascinating little items: old coins, worn jewelry, small trinkets, and a handful of other unusual knickknacks. She could hardly believe what she was seeing. It felt like real treasure, collected from all over the world, carefully hidden away just for her to find. She picked up each item with awe, marveling at their details and imagining the stories behind each piece. The little girl held up each item from the chest, examining them one by one as her family looked on, sharing in her wonder. There were coins with unfamiliar markings, glistening as if they'd come from distant lands. Some pieces of jewelry had stones of different colors, faded but still beautiful, while others looked like miniature relics from a time long past. To her, it was as if she'd uncovered a pirate's treasure, hidden just beneath her own nose all these years. Her father couldn't help but smile as he watched her face light up with every discovery. She held up an old, tarnished compass, its needle still pointing north, and marveled at how ancient and mysterious it looked. She found a small, rolled-up parchment with delicate handwriting that seemed to tell a story in a language she couldn't quite understand. Each piece held a mystery of its own, but together they created a world of magic and possibility for the little girl. "This is amazing," she exclaimed, hardly able to contain her excitement. "Dad, where did all this come from?" "Well," her father replied, trying to keep the magic alive, "treasures like these can be found in the most unexpected places. But remember, it's not every day you find a secret room right next to your bedroom. Not everyone is lucky enough to have such a hidden space." His daughter nodded, her face a mix of awe and excitement. She didn't question how everything had come to be there. She was too caught up in the wonder of her discovery. In her mind, this was her adventure, her story. And she was the lucky one to stumble upon it. As she sifted through the treasures, her mother and grandmother joined her in the secret room, each taking a moment to share in her joy. Her mother picked up a silver ring from the chest and held it up, telling her daughter about how, when she was a girl, she too loved imagining stories of pirates and adventurers. Her grandmother pointed to a delicate brooch and told her it looked like something her own mother used to wear. They laughed and talked, each sharing a little piece of their own history, blending their pasts with this new treasure. For hours the little girl stayed there, sitting on the floor of the secret room, exploring every last item and listening to the stories her family shared. She held each item close, treasuring not only the objects themselves but the memories and dreams they inspired. By evening the room felt like a place outside of time, a special world built from her father's love and imagination. Before bedtime, her father told her there was one more surprise. As she lay in bed, he pulled out a small handwritten letter that he had hidden at the bottom of the trunk. "What's this?" she asked, reaching for it. "It's a letter from me to you," her father said, his voice soft. She unfolded the letter and began reading. "To my brave explorer. By the time you read this, you will have discovered the secret room and all its treasures. I wanted you to have a place filled with wonder and magic, a little escape where your imagination can roam freely. This treasure is yours, and with it I hope you find adventures and stories of your own. No matter where life takes you, remember that you can always come back to this place, this secret room, and know that it was made with love." Tears welled up in her eyes as she hugged her father tightly. She didn't need to understand every word. She could feel the love behind each sentence. And as she drifted off to sleep that night, the treasures safely hidden back in their chest, she knew that this was a moment she would carry with her forever. From that day on, the secret room became her sanctuary, a place of daydreams and make-believe, where she could pretend to be an explorer, a pirate, or a storyteller. She brought friends into the room to show them the wonders her father had hidden for her, spinning tales of lost kingdoms and buried riches. Her father would watch, always there to help her add new treasures or simply listen to her recount her latest adventures. The years went by, and as she grew older she began to understand the significance of her father's gift. The treasures were a reminder of his love, his way of telling her that life itself was full of magic if you looked closely enough. And while the toys and trinkets from her childhood were eventually replaced by other interests, that secret room held a timeless charm. One day, long after she had grown up and moved out, her father decided to show her the video he had taken of her very first discovery of the treasure. They laughed as they watched her 6-year-old self stumble upon the map, wide-eyed and full of wonder. For the father, it was a precious memory, a testament to the joy he had been able to create for his daughter. For her, it was a beautiful reminder of the magic her father had brought into her life, a gift that had lasted a lifetime. Years later, when she had children of her own, she returned to the house and found that her father had kept the room just as it had been. She smiled, knowing she could now pass on the wonder to her own children, inviting them to join in the adventure her father had begun all those years ago. They too would become explorers, discovering hidden treasures and making memories within those secret walls, just as she had. And so the magic continued, a legacy of love and imagination that would endure for generations.